No computer.
So Elizabeth and Holly, and we'll do kind of a check-in with others as they come, but just a heads up, we are recording this and we will upload it to our CTFC YouTube channel. Hi, Layla. We're just getting started, so good timing. Oh, I don't think she's actually on yet. Hi, Layla. We're just getting started, so good timing. Just letting folks know that this will be recorded and it will be uploaded later to our CTFC YouTube channel. So just wanted to give folks a heads up.
Okay, anytime you're ready.
All right. So hi, my name is Susan Goodpasture. I am the Development Director for California Tribal Families Coalition, and I'm also the Director of Social Services for the Paula Band Mission Indians. And today we are doing full day training, parts of an IEP, and we have Dr. Elena Watson with ABC for IEP. And I'm gonna let her, I know I emailed you guys kind of all the materials and stuff that we'll be going through today, but Dr. Watson, if you wanna just kind of introduce yourself and then go over the agenda so they kind of know the time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Hey guys, well, welcome. This is going to be fun because there's only 3 of you. So no, you don't understand. That's really good. I'm usually having a little bit of a larger audience. So as we go along, if you have questions, now is the time. So we have, I believe, a social worker, a prosecutor, and Lilo, I'm so sorry. What was your position?
Layla, are you a social worker?
Has to unmute. She looks like she's trying to be on the phone at the same time.
Let's see. Looks like she's unmuted now. Layla, can you hear us? Okay, she's working on her end.
Okay. Okay, well, we'll just assume. So any questions that pertain to you, please go ahead and ask. There's no formality, there's no things. We'll be taking frequent breaks. Matter of fact, let me go ahead and share my screen with you real fast. Okay, so here's the agenda. We'll go into introductions in just in a second. From 9:30 to 10:30, we're going to be talking about the parts of the beginning of the parts of the IEP, present levels, goals and objectives. Then we're going to be taking a quick 10-minute break. Then we're going to get into our first workshop. Susan, did these ladies or whoever signed up, did you email them this and the work?
Yes, I emailed them the workbook. I emailed them
Okay, cool.
the PowerPoint and yeah, the other stuff that you sent me.
Okay, perfect. So actually I can just then dive in. Come on, present. Right, hopefully that's larger than life on your guys' end, is it?
Yes, it looks good. And Layla was able to put in the chat box. She's having to join from her work cell, but she works in their tribe's education and childcare department as a program assistant. So Layla, what tribe, just out of curiosity?
Well, we'll pop back in.
Yeah,
we'll pop back in. Oh, there she is. All right.
Machupta. Awesome.
Okay. Cool. No requirements. Just I want you guys to have fun. So these are the parts of the IEP. It's federal code, excuse me, part B. If you've been looking at these, if you've been looking at these presentations, you'll know that there's 4 parts of the Individuals with Disability Education Act. There's A, and that's with the individual infant or I'm sorry, individual family specialized plan, the IFSP. That's from 0 to 3. Now that would be called part A, but this is part B. So this is from 3 to 22. That's who it covers. Okay, again, we're going to be covering today all the parts of the IEP. This is an intro course, and the intended audience is just anybody who's interested. Hold on for a second. I'm having like a coughing attack. Sorry about that. Okay. So we already went through the agenda and a little bit about me. I have a doctorate in educational leadership from Walden University. My master's and credentials are from University of San Diego, and my bachelor's in primary arts, well, liberal arts, was from United States International University. I worked as an educator, a program specialist, an assistant principal over special education, a principal for county programs, a director of student services, a director of special education, and also an adjunct professor with Grand Canyon University. Okay, so here are the 13 parts that we are going to be talking through today. So let's go ahead and hit the ground running with information page. So with the information page, right, it has to have the child's legal last name and first name, IEP date, which would be right up here. The purpose of the meeting, if there's any home information. So if you have a foster situation or a guardian situation, you'd be right here. And also the eligibility. What's the primary and what's the secondary? And we just went over this. So the student's last name, the exact birth date, the last IEP, this will be on the same date as the IEP, above. The next IEP, and of course, when the student first got into special education. It also should have the last eval, the next eval, and also, like I was saying before, the purpose of the meeting. Wow, I'm having a real hard time today. Yikes. Sorry about that. Okay. This is also where if a student may be facing a manifestation determination or an expulsion. That would be in one of these meetings. And of course, there were just the regular HIMHOV information, the gender, the migrant status, the native language. The EL status is, especially in California, I pay attention to, because if the EL status is an English learner, I just want to make sure that even though they are an English learner, they still also have a handicapping need, and that needs to be addressed. Okay. More information about the guardian or guardian information. Um, as, this is where I want to slow down a little bit, because I know that some of you have cases regarding students that may be living with not their parents, correct? Thumbs up? Anybody?
I give a thumbs up.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
That's going to be most of us.
All right. I just missed, I don't often just talk to myself. Thank you, Elizabeth. Okay. So this is more the resident school information, the district of residence. And now we're just going to plunge right into the present levels of performance. And this is where you need to really key in. So the 9 areas of academic and functional performance is called a plateau. Yes, plap. So we're going to be talking about area 1, 2, 3, all the way down to 9. I'll pause and just have you, as social workers, as prosecutors, as defenders, advocates. These are the things that I look at. Okay, so I'm going to be twisting this a little bit for what you guys need. Okay, so here's just a self-perform. The strengths, preferences, and interests, and also the concerns of the parents. This is what it looks like through area 2 through 8. Here was last year's goals. Like goal 1, if it was in reading comprehension, did they make it? Did they partially make it? Did they not make it? Here's how I feel about partially. Partially has like, if you had the, if he was doing, the goal was 80%, right? And by the IAP, he only did 75. Okay, I can see that as a partially met, but it's either they met the goal or they didn't. I don't know if that makes sense. But I would be looking at this. If there was any checks for partially met, I would be wondering why. So when it comes to the reading, writing, and math, we have to really focus on what is the student's strengths and weaknesses, right? So when it comes to functional levels of academic performance, right? Strength. Are they an auditory learner? Does the student have better visual processing than auditory? Those are strengths, not Johnny is a nice boy. We all know Johnny is a nice boy. Matter of fact, I've never read an IEP that said Johnny was not a nice boy. So, you know, but when we talk about the student strengths, that's what we need to talk about. Then interest and all that good stuff. So I'm going to take you right here to that functional skills that I was telling you about, academic and developmental. So when we talk about reading, where is the child reading? And we have to be careful because I want to also see where the child is comprehending. If you have, for example, a child that has autism, and it could go either way in the spectrum, do they comprehend what they're reading? They may be great readers, they may be saying everything correct, but ask them what their comprehension is, you'll see a gap. So why I say that is simply because I hear a lot of educators, not bad, but saying that, well, he understood. How do you know? Well, he read it out loud. Uh-huh. How do you know he comprehended it? You demonstrated that he was able to read it. So anyway, writing, math, where they are, and then it goes into the communications development. This is your speech and language. This is also your, it could be the functional communication. Gross and fine motor skills, those are your fine motor skills, are your handwriting, gross motor, or your larger muscles. Social, emotional, and behavioral. How do they get along with self, others during conflict? Is there any problems? Let's see, health, vocational, adaptive, daily living skills, and then area of necessity explained in the terms of goals and objectives. Okay, this is where they need to say, okay, yeah, Johnny's a good reader, but his comprehension is at a 2.5 grade level, right? And he's a sixth grader. Okay, then that we just identified then an area of need. That would be down there. Anything that shows a need, it should be explained in the goals and objectives. Oops. Rose. Hold on. Hey, Rose, welcome. We were just talking about you. Not really.
Thank you.
All right, glad you're here. So we're on to what is the present levels of academic achievement and functional performance, right? We briefly said about that, but just to review, what are the child's learning style strengths? Do they have long-term memory retrieval, which is accompanied by accommodations? So in other words, his strength is long-term retrieval, but he still needs accommodations to get to there. Okay. Is really the strength of the student. So if I had to, how would I teach him? I would be going there. Parents' concerns, this is, or caregivers, this is the part where, how is it educationally related? If you have a behavior, right, or if there's some kind of trauma that happened to the child, this is where you note that. Okay. You don't have to say the entire case. You don't have to do that, but because the child is, currently removed from home, caution should be, caution and observance should be given to the student's behavior. As simple as that. Let's see, test scores, California standard test scores, more test scores. With the California Modified Assessment, the CMA, these are for kids that are basically needing some modified help with their assessments. So they may have, for example, Down syndrome, or some may have autism or a really bad specific learning disability. Some even have a functional ID would be within the CMA. It depends. Oops. Okay. We already went through that. Hearing and vision, screening, enter. Oh, okay. So within the form, I also look at the hearing and screening area. So if they failed in their vision, and I would look at that as making sure that the assessments that then were given were correct. And somewhere in there, it's noted. If they wear glasses and I don't see it in the IEP, I would note that, because you're judging in a kid that has visual processing and he already failed and we're not addressing it. Okay. Whoops. Okay. Or we're flying by through this. All right. Next, goals and objectives. Now, I think you've heard this. They have to be SMART goals. They have to be specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. So we're going to get into that. So when you look at your IEP, right, you have your goals and objectives. It's headed right up on there. The area of need. This is where you get that information from the present level of performance. Remember that little strip's the area of need. So it's connecting the dots. So let's say it's functional pragmatics. And that's the area of need, would be then functional pragmatics. And then what would the baseline be? The baseline is basically, where is the student at that very point of functional academics? Or I'm sorry, functional functionality. Sorry, my mind is way. Oh, this is going to be a nice review, won't it? Okay. So with that baseline, where is that child? Now, there should be a measurable annual number goal, like one, goal two, goal three, goal four. It drives me nuts when there isn't one because then it throws off the SACE and then I have to start searching for stuff, but that's my own pet peeve. The standard is that basically what California standard are we looking at? Now, there has been debate is saying, no, we have to teach the grade level standard. Understood. But you can still take in the California code, right? I mean, California standards is that they're broad enough where it takes you from, one all the way out, organizational skills, stuff like that within math. Anyway. So let's dive into the annual goal. The goals must be measurable and related to the baseline data. Goals must include who, the student does what. Basically, you're observing the behavior, you're observing the observation that you want him to do. For example, we'll add single digit numbers. 3, when, by the reporting date, when are you going to be expecting Johnny to be able to do X? Given what conditions, how much mastery, and how will it be measured? You guys all still with me? Thumbs up. Give me a thumbs up. Come on. Thank you, Elizabeth. Hey, all right, all right. Thank you. All right, thank you so
We're
much.
with you. We're with you.
All right, thank you. Thank you for the thumbs up. All right. So when we talk about the goals, they basically, involve progress in the general education curriculum, or are they addressing a specific need of the child's disability? As I just said right there. It also could involve the secondary transition goals, and we'll hit about what transition is and is not, and progress reports. Okay, so here's an example. Ready? All right, so on this one, the present levels of academic achievement and functional performance. On a qualitative reading inventory, read 180, so I got my source. Sarah achieved 4th grade silent instructional reading levels for stories. Okay, I'm assuming that with this goal, she's reading it to herself and she's comprehending it. That's how I'm able to measure it. Currently, she has achieved 4th grade instructional level for silent reading narrative materials of 250 words. Okay. My overall goal a year from that day, okay, by the end of the 3rd March, well, by a year from now, Sarah will achieve a 5th grade instructional level for silent reading narrative materials of a story of 500 words and more. So not only am I trying to speed her up, I'm also raising her grade level. Oops. Okay, here's an example how you can cut down the objectives and the goals. Objectives to the goals. I'm sorry, didn't. Okay, sorry about that. My screen did something weird. Okay, so with the goal that we just met, let's break it down into objectives. All right, so the first objective, by the end of the first marking period date, whatever that date is, Sarah will answer 7 out of 8 questions correctly when silently reading narrative materials. She will achieve this on 3 successive occasions with new and unfamiliar 4th grade narrative materials of 350 words from ABC Reader. Okay, so with that, the second objectives would be the same type, but now I'm increasing the speed. Here, the second objective, 4th grade narrative materials of 500 plus words from ABC Reader. Now, the second objectives, remember, I just increased her time from a fourth grade narrative material. She's already at 500. She's on cue. I now move the grade level up to fifth, but I lower how many words plus because everything is brand new. Make sense? And then from that 350 words, she's already on a fifth grade level. By a year, well, guess what? Here we are. She's not only raised a grade level, but also her silent reading narrative materials speed. All right. As measured by, I try to stay away from teacher's observation. I mean, I really don't like that because, you know, as they say, the proof is in the pudding. And I want to see the data if it's behavior. I want to see the students' work samples, and if there was any charting and were they qualified to do the charting? Did they get any, you know, directions from the district about charting? Okay. See how fast that went? Thumbs up. Let's take a break.
Thank you, Dr. Watson. And we should have 2 more folks joining us here in just a few.
Okay, no, that's perfect. I mean, they won't be seeing my charming personality, but there it is. Okay. So, okay, so let's go ahead and take a quick break, and we'll see you back here. All right. Okay, guys, well, welcome back officially. Whoops, hello, why did... There we go. Okay, now welcome back officially. Okay, no, you're not seeing me. I mean, you are seeing. Like I said, welcome back. Sorry for the delay. Look at me, go ahead and share the screen again. There we go. So let's go ahead and talk about your student or your case. So here's the Tasmanian Devil. He's a 9th grader. He's attending Bugs Bunny Academy, and his date of birth is 11/1/2005. So what does that tell me? That tells me that I need to look at his transition because he's pretty close, or if not 16, or is going to be turning that, 16 soon. So I'd be looking for, is there a need for a transition plan? So let's talk about Taz. Tasmanian Taz Devil is currently attending Bugs Bunny Academy as a 10th grade. Ooh, did I say 9th grader? Oh, look at that. So I would then be circling that if there's any discrepancies. Okay. He currently lives with his father and mother and younger sister. Assignments. He likes to listen to music stories, playing and squishy and drawing. That is really a doctoral level sentence. Wow. I apologize for that. According to his teacher and parents, he has shown great progress towards his social behavioral skills. When something is vague like that, I put a question mark on it, just simply because it's like great progress. What does that mean? He is doing well with his learning strategies, which are what? When becoming frustrated and or upset. Taz is a multi-model learner and learns best using visuals, having directions repeated, hands-on activities. Taz takes pride in doing well and tries his best when completing his, wow, what the heck happened here? You guys don't have the full thing then. Yee, how embarrassing. Hold on. Okay, we're going to skip that part. We're going to start here. I am so sorry. Taz is reading at 6th grade reading level. He continues to struggle with annotation skills and reading fluency. Okay, with that, that would be one of my goals that I would be looking for inside the IEP. He is able to describe characters, settings, and times in a story. Okay, that's good. So that should be part of that baseline that I'm going to be seeing soon. Taz is working on the main ideas of a story and write 4 sentences using transitional words. Okay. With support, I would want to know what. He is able to write an introduction and conclusion sentence on a topic. Taz is able to write is Taz is able to identify writing conventions such as periods, exclamation marks, comma, apostrophes. Uh, During writing assignments, he will use his dictionary to support his writing and ask for help when he isn't frustrated. Okay. Taz comprehension skills is a 5th grade level. Okay, good. In math, Taz is able to add and subtract double digits. Numbers with and without grouping. He understands place values and the correspondences of borrow tens and hundreds places. Taz has passes multiplications. He can solve 2 steps problems involving addition and subtraction with support and guidance. All right. Taz uses drawing manipulatives as a strengths for his math skill, strengthening his math skills. Okay, so when I look at the goal, I want to say, I want to see, with accommodations such as drawing and manipulatives, comma. He can identify the time to the hour, hour to the minute. Geez, I really, really hope that my kiddo is messing with me. On an analog clock, he is currently working on his timetables and word problems. The reason I just said that is okay, I asked someone because this is lifted from one of my IEPs, not my personal IEP, somebody else's IEP, and your brain automatically reconnects itself, connect words, and so you may not see it the first time. So I asked him, I said, all I need you to do is just write this out as seen in the IEP. And so as I'm reading this, I'm like, oh dear, I really hope it's him and not the IEP. Okay, so this is his academic profile. I'm hoping that this gets better when we talk about the communication part or the speech and language impairment part of Taz. Again, Taz has made considerable progress in language therapy over the past year. Don't know what that means. Be more specific. He actively participates in small group activity, turn taking, and follows classroom rules and expectations during some preferred sessions. He will sometimes even remind his peers of an expected or unexpected rule that are required. Taz comes to his individual language sessions willingly to learn and will often refer to previously taught social skills and concepts that were discussed. He has a great understanding of social rules such as respecting the teachers of other students and rabbits. Give me a thumbs up if you still have me. Yay, thank you, Rose. Oh, Elizabeth, thank you, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. So Taz is still struggles with the ability to make comparisons of the same and different vocabulary words, identify how the specific behavior makes other people feel, the consequences, and how that impacts and how impacts other people, how other people feel. He continues to struggle in identifying the size of a problem, big versus small, and stated the appropriate reaction to the situation. During recess and lunch, it's been observed that he still struggles with appropriate initiation and maintenance of a topic of conversation, all of the other person's choosing without trying to spin and eat the other students. I would probably write that as potential behavioral need. So let's talk about OT for a second, occupational therapy. My mouth is dry. So Taz is dominantly right-handed for all fine motor skills, including writing and cutting. He demonstrates ability to appropriate letter formation and letter word spacing. Currently, Taz has some difficulty maintaining letter sizing and orientation to the tasking, too basic when using non-adaptive paper. This is getting so good. Okay. So on and so forth. So as you're reading through this, I'm going to give you guys like maybe 10 minutes. And what we're going to be discussing. Oops, come on. Nope, it's not going to do it right now. Stop sharing. There you go. All right, sorry about that. So go ahead and read that through. I'll give you just 10 minutes. Pick an area of need, and we'll just do that as a group. Okay, ready, go. Anything, are we ready? You need a couple of more minutes? Hello, hello. Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. Okay, Elizabeth, thank you so much. Well, I have a treat for you guys. Oops. Oop, 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 oop. All right. So I want to share, I got some video footage of some of the things that we were covering today in the IEP, even though it was lifted from a different IEP.
Here it is. A strong
Okay, so what we're about to demonstrate is his right hand dominance, and you'll see the correct sizing in which we were discussing earlier.
Rabbits. Rabbits? It doesn't say rabbits here.
There we go.
What's up, Dad? Tasmanian she-devil.
We do need to talk about appropriateness when a child becomes about 15, 16 years old during that transition, because we do not want a misperceived notion of sexual harassment at class. So it looks like Taz does prefer music over anything else. He gets very irritated when not.
What's up, Doc? Jeez, what a grouch.
Obviously, we have a behavioral issue. He does not do well with others taunting him. But again,
Now
prefers
then,
music.
let's test the reflexes. 15 inches. Not bad.
Right now, we are
Tell
saying
me,
that
do
he's
you see spots
demonstrating
before your eyes?
inappropriate faith in others. Okay. Trusting others that shouldn't be trusted. Like, but good to know he does not like bagpipes.
Eat an apple while it's still a season.
I don't know why you guys can't hear this. He's not a distinguished eater.
Pardon.
Will put
That's all
anything in
right.
his mouth.
You good kid. Don't you? Me, Buster. This'll give you a real lift. Just what you need. This medicine works faster and better if you shake well.
And again, I'm a
after
little
using.
worried with his social skills because he's very trusting of others. All right, you got the guys, got the idea, right? There we go. Okay, give me a thumbs up if you still are there. Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you, Rose. Holly, hey. Anybody else? Okay, hey, at least that thanks. So let's get back to our like little workshop. And then we'll let you go at we'll let you go for then lunch, all right? So what are some of the things, and you can just put it in the chat, I'm right here. Let me share my screen. What are some of the things that you, after reading his profile, what are some of the things that you noticed that this child, area of need that this child needed, or TAS? You can put in the chat, you can unmute yourself. So that was actually a question to you guys. What area of need do you think TAS needs? Okay. So why don't we do this? Well, let me stop thing. Why don't we just jump into the lunchtime? We get 30 minutes. All right. Okay, perfect. We'll go ahead and, whoops, let me enter EM. Hold on. So we'll return in about 30 minutes. Okay. All right. So welcome back. I don't have my headset on here. Wait a second. All right, now I do. I wanted to slow down a little bit with you because I looked at my time, and two things. When we were on our little break, I went to go and research why the TAS example was so bad. And quote unquote, you said to copy it word from word. So sorry about that. I should have proofread it. But it just gives you an example of how necessary it is to slow down just a little bit. So within the next few minutes, what I want to do is just slow down before we get to transition, age 16 and above, what happens. And I want to really focus on what the areas that mean the most to me. So let me go ahead and share my screen. Okay. So if you remember look at it this way. This is your blueprint. Let's see if I can switch over. Can I switch over? Nope. Okay. So this is your blueprint to basically the map of your case file or your case or your family or your student or your whatever. So I just want to slow down, like I said, just for a second and really talk about the strengths, preferences, and interests. Because again, the student's strengths, preferences, and interests are going to be how we reach the child. Not that they are a very good child. So at what modality does that mean? What modality? Is he a visual learner? Is he an auditory learner? Should I be using more picture icons? That's that strengths. Now, concern of the, here, let me go ahead and share this. Glad there's an edit on this thing. Okay. So when we talk again, the concerns and parents, to the educational progress of their child, that's really important because did the IEP team address their concerns? So let's say Johnny's mom is worried about his social pragmatic behavior during recess. Okay, and I write that down. And I go on and I don't address it in either a goal or in the notes, then I just got basically that my concerns, as a parent or a caregiver were never addressed. All right. Oops. Now, when we talk about the developmental, academic, and functional skills of a child, we have to remember that it's not just reading, writing, and arithmetic. It's also social and pragmatic behaviors. If I may share this, hold on for a second. Ooh, I can't get back. Oops. Hold on. Sorry about that. Okay. Basically, that somebody was writing, that I thought it was a good question. Often, children who have IEPs in my line of work have parents who are minimally parenting the child. If a child has hygiene issues, is tired in class, or is close to the max school absences, all of these are impacting learning. Can an IEP address the issues, whether there are other services, avenues that may be addressed, also address these issues? How can they be addressed in an IEP? How tricky it is. And so I address this in the chats area, but for you guys, it's more common than you think. So where to do that is exactly in those present levels. So for example, instead of saying the minimally parenting children, if the child has, it could be under behavior, it could be under a whole bunch of things, hygiene issues, or is tired in class, they can write that in as an overall impression. So like, for example, the social emotional, maybe occupational or functional skills is if there's hygiene issues. Yeah, Johnny would be coming to class. There are some concerns with hygiene issues, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, you can write that in and also ask for, right, an ERMS assessment. So they're going to ask why. And you're going to say, well, because of all of these issues, either it's hygiene or it's tired of class and all of these other reasons, that it may be impacting the child's educational performance. And yes, behavior is one of them. So you just ask for an ERMS assessment. Okay, so let me go ahead and share my screen back. All right. Okay, so here we go. Like I was saying, uh, communication development, gross and fine motor, social, emotional, behavioral, health. That would be a good health thing, hygiene issue. But usually that's reserved for if the child has asthma, epilepsy, is taking medication from a doctor. That's where you would put that in. Vocational, again, I would add that, yeah, hygiene is also an issue, and, being tired. That's these are all vocational skills that one day she's going to be applying to the real world. So if she or he has this hygiene issue and is always coming to school late, that's going to impact his overall development. Okay. So again, anything from here that's been identified as a need should be down here. Health would be like hygiene, or if they're taking any kind of like medication, if they're asthmatic, if they have anything else. Math, language arts, social skills, behavior, just really basic, simple things. The next thing I would look at, honestly, from there, what I usually do is I go, whoops, from here to, because we already got the present levels of performance, are the goals and objectives. So from what we were just talking about, right, that present levels of performance, then we identify what the need is, if it was a reading goal, and then what the goal is to get that student where they should be, using their strengths. So, for example, if I knew that Johnny was a visual learner, I would probably have changed this goal by saying, by year's date, excuse me, by year's date, Johnny will achieve, I don't know, fifth grade reading level for silent reading narrative by using these accommodations in parentheses of 500 words or more. Now, that's me being picky. But if it doesn't, the goals should be as plain as day. You can see it. You can see it. Now, with this goal, like I said, I just lifted it from an IEP. It doesn't make sense, but it makes a little sense if you were in there. I should have picked a little bit of a more obvious, goal. But if there is a need, there should be a goal to that need. And how is it going to be measured by, and in what way? So a lot of educators love putting percentages. Careful, because remember, percentages are quantifiable. So in other words, that they can add up. So if you're saying, we'll be able to check his emotions with 80% accuracy 7 out of 8 times, I'm like, okay, so I should have then a data sheet, right, to mark the 7 out of 10 times or whatever. And each one of those, or that percentage, should then be having 7 out of 10 as the average. So then I'm expecting 2 pieces of paper from her. So you want to be careful on how the goals are written, because they want to be, like, for example, the SMART goal, achievable. And when it gets so many variables in there, it's not going to be achievable. Apologize. So if the goal you can see it in your mind, what the child should be doing, you're on a good track. If you can't see it, go back and ask for clarifications. And you can even ask, "Hey, listen, I don't speak educationalese. What does this mean in just plain language?" And then, "Oh, I want her to do A, B, C, and D 3 out of 5 times by the end that we get, back to school." "Oh, okay. Can you write that exactly the way that it should be?" or the way that you just said it, so it makes sense. But, okay, so from the NAT, my second, oh, let me stop sharing. So we have the present levels, we have the goals and objectives, and then the third things is that the services page, that would be my next go-to. So let's go ahead and go to the service page. We'll come back to transition just in a second. Service. Hold on. Again, I apologize for that. Anyway, I go and we're going to be talking about, and it's right here, the special education related services is from those goals that they need, are there proper services that the child needs? So those are the three areas that I usually pay attention to, along with the supplementary aids and services. So let's go ahead and continue. I apologize for the interruption. Okay, we're going to be talking about transition, that time that you grow a little bit more gray hair on your head. Anybody here have any 16-year-olds? Give a heart. Nobody? Does anybody have kids here? Thumbs up. Yeah, Holly. Thank you. Okay. So if you haven't reached that sweet nectar of 16 for your child, you're in for a nice warm welcome. Let me share my screen with you. All right. So when you talk about transition, I know that the educational field does a lot of wording when it comes to transition. And technically, there you'll hear, transition from grade to grade level, transition to this and that. In an IEP, the only transition that you should be really paying attention to is one of them is this one. So a child that has to have a transition plan, an ITP, has to be at least 16 years old. And basically what an ITP is how are they going to survive for the rest of their life? What do they need to learn? So with this slide, transition goals and services focus on instruction and support services needed to help the child move from school environment into a job environment or advocate for her or himself, and also to go to college, vocational programs, or other programs designated to promote independent learning. So if you understand that, or make the mind shift when your child or a child, a client, is in high school and is about to get their general education diploma, you have 4 good years. But we'll talk about that in a second. So transition. During this time, the ITP, that's the individual transition plan, needs to invite the student himself. The agency needs to also be invited, whatever agency that is attached to that child. How a student participated in the process. Basically, did they do a student interview? Did the child even have a say? That's why that was in there. Was there age-appropriate transition assessment instruments were used? I noted here that assessments need to be comprehensive, not just vocational. So we understand that if Johnny is a visual learner, he may be also good with putting things together with his hands or visual processing stuff. I'm making this up. But it's not just, putting motor parts, it's comprehension. How are they going to learn? What are the tools that they need to be able to face the world? So in everyday language, I would say, all right, The child is handicapped, can't walk, needs a wheelchair. All right, let's look at the terrain. What kind of wheelchair? Based on the terrain, based on where that child wants to go. Okay, here are some examples. So when we talk about education, the question is always on the child. I want to what? So upon completion of school, I will, for example, join the Army, or I will go to a trade school, or I will go to a community college, or I will go to a 4-year university. What is it? For the employment, upon completion of school, I will work in a competitive employment. Okay. What? So if it's some kind of competitive employment, that means, okay, I need to learn how to write a resume. I need to learn about social skills. I need to do an interview. What are the skills I need to do that to be in a competitive employment? All right. Um, for independent living, upon completion of school, I will live with friends in a home and apartment, or upon completion of school, I will live on my own with the help of family and friends. Okay, so I think you're getting the picture a little bit. Guess what? You have a little workshop. Give a heart if you're still there. Hey, thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you for the thumbs up. Right on. Anybody else? Okay. So, Elizabeth, it's you and me. Okay, so guys, if you can hear me, if you can look at the TAS profile at the wannabe school district, remember I said that TAS was of age. So what are the things that you can think about that he needs to be employable outside? I'll give you 2 minutes. Okay, ready, go. You have 1 more minute.
You're on mute.
Thank you, Elizabeth. So Elizabeth says, with TAS, it was the communication, emotional regulation, staying focused on tasks. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, what kind of, for example, goal would then you be thinking about when it comes to communication and him transitioning to a job? So that means he needs back and front interaction, right? He needs to ask for clarifying questions. So if you dissect what just a basic job interview looks like, and then look at the child, then you can backward plan. Give me a thumbs up if you got that. real thumbs up. Thank you. All right. So with that, let me share my screen again. We're going to blow through the break if that's okay. Is that all right with everybody? Yeah, you know, you need a break? 10-minute? Okay, well, we'll just take a 10-minute break real fast. Everything off on that one. How about that? So happy Friday the 13th. Okay, so let's go ahead and oops, share my screen really fast. All right. Special factors. Okay, so remember we had TAS. We looked at the baselines. We looked at the function, the academic. We looked at the behavior. We looked at the transition goals of what he needs. Now, is there anything else? So when a school district talks about special factors, it talks about assistive technology, laptops, tablets, whatever. It could also be a low assistive technology like picture icons. Low incident services are for deaf and hard of hearing and blind, or other medical issues. Special transportation. It's not a given that your child all of a sudden gets transportation. It's does he need it? And does the student's behavior impede the learning of self and others? And tomorrow you'll be talking more about what that means. Okay, so anytime that we talk about an IEP or the goals or the accommodation, we're also talking about the testing, right? Both inside the classroom as well as outside the classroom, state testing. So if they have a state testing, it needs to match up what the IEP has to say. Unless the state does not allow it on state testing, but that has to be, explained. Again, the IEP must explain what types of testing, adaptations and modifications will be used with the student and why they are necessary. If the child will participate in any alternative assessment, that would be, for example, the California Modified Assessment or the CAPA, I forgot what the CAPA stands for, but just the CAPA. Rationale for, let's see, if the child will participate in an alternative assessment, the rationale for that decisions must be included in the IEP. Usually the rationale is due to the student's disability or comprehension of grade level material, or due to the intellectual disability of the students, etc. Okay. Now, everybody talks about this and it drives me crazy. What is the least restrictive environment? So we're going to talk about what the least restrictive environment is, and then we're going to be talking about a little bit of FAPE when we talk about that. So the least restrictive environment is basically right down here where you say general education and inclusion, all the red and green dots, they're all together. They're not separated, they're not pulled out. They get the services within their educational setting. Okay. However, if the student needs more comprehensive, right, then we're going to be going in-class support and resources and also pull out. So, the push in and pull out methodology, that's this. in-class support and resources. Sometimes they'll go to like a resource center. Or it could be a special contained class. This is your like SDC classes. So this would be, for example, your RSP classes. This would be your SDC classes. And as you're going up, as you see, we're getting more separated and separated all the way up to residential. That is the most restrictive environment. Now, I'm going to be on a little soapbox for this. As you can see, the arrow should be pointing both ways, not just one way, because you can take a child from residential, right? Bring him back with a transition emotional transition plan all the way back to school. So as advocates, we want to make sure that they're not just sitting in one spot forever, not getting assistance, just being housed. So we need to fight that a little bit. Okay. Supplementary aids and services. I'm still on my soapbox a little bit. So you're going to hear this. If the child needs a one-to-one, that is the most restrictive environment that you can put a child in. I say this wholeheartedly. That is nonsense. It is rubbish. How can a person be an environment? You can't. So when we talk about the need for a one-to-one, we're actually talking about supplementary aids and services. So these include anything that will provide access to the general education environment. And it depends on the student's strengths and also disability. Do they need a read out loud? Do they need a sensory diet so they can get them back more into focus? Do they need a laptop? Do they need a separate setting when taking certain exams so the noise level doesn't go up? I don't know. But again, books on tape. I do include the one-to-one aid. Now, a lot of people have asked me, well, when do you think you need that? Well, if they are, for example, a student that is in an SDC room but has a perfectly normal IQ and there's not that big of a discrepancy. So like, for example, let's say it's a fourth grader, for whatever reason, doing third grade work and is an SDC class. I would have gone, no. I would have, really asked what other supplementary services and supports does that child need? Now, let's say it's behavior. Does that fall under the same feeling, the same realm? Well, the answer is yes, of course. So if he's able to access intellectually the curriculum and he understands what's going on, except what gets in the way of the behavior, but that one-to-one aid or the specialist understands what the triggers are and can coach him through those triggers so he can access the curriculum, then yeah, a child needs a one-to-one. So, okay. So when we talk about supplementary aids and services, we're also talking about, the related services. So right here, I'm just showing you for example, if there was consultation, if there was an accommodation or a modification for something, it should be like right in here. So let's say training for the aide, right? Who's going to train the aide in Johnny's specific behavioral needs, right? Usually the BCBA person or the psychologist, depending on what it is. So right here, it should have BCBA for the personnel and for the students when it starts, how many times, what's the duration, and also the location is usually where the student is at. Okay, so let's talk about the wheels on the bus go round and round. Transportation is not a given. So the IEP must determine that the district's obligation to provide transportation with its students with a disability is on a case-by-case basis. However, the district must make that determination based on the relationship between the child's disability and the need for that particular service like transportation. So, for example, can Johnny that has a learning disability, right? Or here we go, a speech and language impairment, would he need transportation services if he lived right across the school? Oh, no, why? Is because, well, he is functional in how to get to school. He's been very successful in getting to school. And there's no need for that. He can do that independently. Now, if the child cannot get to school, then independently, or you just can't make it, then transportation is discussed. Okay, extended school year. Do I have any questions? Can I have a thumbs up? Yay, thank you. Okay. All right, so let's talk about ESY. ESY is not summer school. It's exactly what its ESY stands for. It's an extension of the school. So there's two criteria. Number one, will the child regret? Here's the truth. All children, all people will regress in some way or form if they don't practice it all day, right? Or every day. So usually if you go on like a month vacation and try to get back to work, everybody, oh yeah, that's right. Okay, you have a little bit of regression, but the next is that how fast can you repeat that? So here's an example of what I was just saying. You go on a vacation for a lovely month to Tahiti or wherever your wonderful places, solid month, good family time. You don't even think about work. You come back Sunday morning and you arrive at your work Monday morning and you're able to get yourself into the car, you know how you dress, you know where your job is, you know how to start your engine, the car, going to work, et cetera, et cetera. You get there and you're able to go to work. You may forget a couple of like passwords, but oh yeah, that's right. Remember them. That is an example of regression with recruitment. Now, children that have a lack of recruitment, this is what it looks like. This is that you go on for that vacation, and you may know where your job is, but you may forgotten how to drive your car, or even if you're able to get to work, but you totally have no idea how to work. That is an example of regression without recruitment. And that is what qualifies students with special education for ESY. The purpose of ESY is not to keep on accelerating, like maintain, so they don't lose too much. Okay, I'll perfect. Okay, so the offer of faith it's called a free and appropriate public education, and it is what the school and the district offers to determine how to address a student with special needs in what they think is really it's really important that they have a list of students' activities in relation to the same age care, because remember, we're taking them out of their general education environment somewhere. So, for example, if the student is with their peers during reading, math, lunch, and recess, they're have to, but not with the general education for example, let's just say reading for reading because of low comprehension or comprehension, whatever. So if I would have to do that again, probably with the students activities, they should be the same age to ID, math, lunch, recess, assembly, passing period. But students will participate in general, will not participate in general education in non-academic activities for reading because why? Okay. It's done. Having a hard time listening. How am I sounding now? Oh, some word fell off? Oh, I'm sorry. Wait, did you get the gist? Thumbs up? All right. Okay. So I hope that some of you are still here outside of Elizabeth because here's where it gets interesting. Signature and consent. Here in this part should be everybody that participated, the parents, additional participants. That would be, for example, you, what your title was. Now, do they have to sign right then and there? The answer is no. By law, the parent has 15 days to come to make a decision to communicate with the district. So no, they don't have to sign it right there. They can take it home. But if they're all good with everything, yes. But there's three types of, I'm sorry, yeah, main types of consent. That you agree to all parts of the IEP. That means you are so good with the goals and objectives. You are really good with how much services and what services are going to be provided. You're good with the present levels, how they're going to be assessed, everything's great. However, you do have the choice that you agree with some parts, but with the exception of what? So let's say you agree with the services, or here, I'll flip it. You agree with the goals, but you don't agree with the services, the amount of service, let's say speech and language. So you can actually explain to your parent, I agree to some of the parts for the exception of speech and language proposed goals. So what that does is it allows the rest of the IEP goals and services to move ahead, and also the speech and language services to move ahead, but then you're at stay put, meaning what your last agreed on goal was, until that issue is resolved. And yes, it's usually but you know, sometimes I will reach out within like 15 days saying, are we coming back? So I'm not really so you would have wanted them to and say just everything is hitting the fan. I do not agree. That means you do not agree. Just be careful with that because that immediately you go into stay put. Anything that you do not agree with, you are in stay put, which means again that you are working off of the last of the IEP. So if this is an initial, right? An initial meaning, for example, a brand new IEP. Well, then what ends up happening is that okay, you don't agree, they don't go into special education anyway. So that stay put was basically the general last replacement, which is general education. However, You can also, if you don't agree with anything, come back at the IEP and work out what you don't agree with if they're already. Then we talk about the eligibility. That's your primary and secondary. Safeguards, parents' rights, and if the child is in private school. I want to talk about eligibility for a second. There's some eligibility that will naturally blend with each other, but I usually like looking at a primary and a secondary. So what a primary is with, of all the disabilities that that child may qualify for, what disability is the primary reason why we're meeting. So let's say, for example, a child has autism and adapt autism and, for example, speech and language. Can autism and speech and language be under um, uh, the category of autism? But if autism went away, what is the secondary disability? So that's what that primary and secondary is. I guess it comes up if you understand that. Anybody understood that? Just think of if it was a car, right? What is the primary? Is it a front drive, or is it a wheel drive, that wheel drive kind of car? What is the primary? What is the secondary? Okay, so here are the parts in an IEP. And again, we have the information page, the present levels of academic and functional performance, and you have your goals and objectives. If they turn 16 years old, that needs to be part of that or within that school year. We have special education services considered. We have supplementary aid services, and yes, it does mean one-to-one and not to meet the requirements of it, not to be within their budget. Special education and related services, transportation, PSY, which is during the school year. The offer of a free and appropriate public education in this part of the year. Okay, Elizabeth, you say, can you say again which part? The sound is not good. Oh, so that's basically part of the kind of thing. We get through very quickly. Usually when I give this presentation, like I said, it's to a larger audience and there's breakout rooms. And, well, here we are, 2020. We do our best. Does anybody have, if they can unmute themselves? Hey,
The sound is going in and out, so I understand the gist of what you're saying, but every once in a while I miss something, so I don't know. I have my volume up pretty loud. It might be on my end too. I don't know.
okay, I apologize for that. I'm not sure why, but it is Friday the 13th, so I'm just going to blame Tom.
Right.
So do you have a question?
I don't know. I don't. I'm good.
Okay, so just always remember that when you're dealing with kids that are on IEPs and how to really advocate for them, look at, bottom line, what I instantly go for behavior within your world. I instantly, has there been any behavior that's if yes, has it been written down? Are they addressing? If not, and this is, just a sudden movement, of a child in their home environment or their new home environment, then I would follow up to make sure that that student has at least some counseling or an assessment for counseling due to the current events of what happened at the home. Really, really super important to request that. Another thing that I want you guys to write down is what's called prior written notice. What that is the district's obligation of providing you a written notice if they accept or reject your request. In other words, let's say it's about that one-to-one. I'm requesting a one-to-one for Johnny based on behavioral issues that were noted in the IEP. I'm the director, I see this. I have to give specific reasons why, not just a no at the IEP meeting. So if they just say, no, I don't see it, the most important and impactful word that you can say is, well, thank you, then we will be looking forward to our prior written notice in 15 days. Because that's what the school is up to. Anything that you're requesting, an OT, any kind of assessment, 15 days. Now, if they say no, they have to have a really good reason, especially about an assessment. That's worthy for their process. So, for example, there was only one time I've been in the field for this subject. There's been only one time that I ever said no to an assessment. This child was at HO school, socially fine, average kid, nothing happening at home, nothing, just nothing. So based on that, he was taking AP classes as well as his medical profile did not indicate any autism. I actually rejected that. Well, because I rejected it, we had to go through the process. So I could set it in to the ALJ, which stands for Attorney Law Judge, saying, here's the profile of the child. I understand that mom is worried about him getting an A- in English Lit, but AP English Lit, but I highly do not feel that it is qualitative enough to, to do an assessment. Now, the short end of the stick is that, yeah, probably would have been faster if I just did an assessment. But because anytime that they say no, they have to give justification why. And are they going to replace, or are they going to press the issue with due process? Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Okay. Now, other timelines. You have, if you want to auto record the meeting, even in here, in this realm, you can. You have to give the district 24-hour notice that you're recording the IEP on your parents' behalf. Let's see. In your world, what are some of the situations that are going on?
Well, like I was texting earlier in the chat, I have a lot of kids who, the parents aren't really paying attention to what the kids are doing, and the kids are, they're going to school, they're not going to school, they're going to sleep, or they're playing video games all night. It's just kind of chaos, and it's impacting their ability to learn. And some of these kids, I have a sibling group of 3 who all have IEPs, and this is happening with all 3 of them. Their hygiene is bad, they're hungry all the time, but the social services can't really pinpoint or prove what they feel they need to prove. So, it falls for removal of the kids.
Mhm.
So it falls back on the school or nobody.
Right. I would say I would definitely refer them to ERMS. Right.
Yeah.
And
For Michigan, I have to do more research on it, but I
Oh,
couldn't
okay.
find that for Michigan. But it's probably just called something else. So
yeah, it's basically, it stands for the early educationally related mental health. So back in the day, before ERMS came to be in full acknowledgement, if a child was mentally ill, right, or had mental issues, we called it ERMS, and they would have wraparound services and helping this and helping that. Today it's similar. So if whatever you're in, ask for, I would Google school mental or district mental health, or school district, school district mental health,
okay.
and see what pops up in the Google. Like one of my clients say, she's really got it. I thought it is. Do you have little ones or big ones, or just a?
This group is middle school age, but the kids that I observe kind of run the gamut.
One of the things I just also wanted to tell you is be careful that in the school environment, or not the school environment, the home environment.
Oh, I can't really hear you.
Ah, I need to get a new one. Okay, so if
That's
the
better.
child, okay, I really need now a good speaker, obviously. Okay. So what I'm saying is that you have to be careful with that. The children are already on an IEP, which is great, right? But if the child's environment is convincing that they're not succeeding at school, they don't qualify for special education. So it's slippery slope. So be careful.
Mhm.
But if they already have disability and servicing and all of that, then I would write that for self.
Okay.
Let's see what else is there.
But the parent has to agree, right? I'm reading in here that the parent needs to agree with all of that.
Yeah, like the consent forms, those 3 areas, I do not agree. I agree with some parts, or I agree with the whole. Where are you thinking about?
That might be tricky.
Okay. So, yeah, to have them sign and consent.
If the parent thinks there isn't a problem.
Unfortunately, that is not in your case at
Right.
all. Because the parents do have the right by federal code to remove the child from special education. And if that's done, well, then it kind of depends on the district and how compassionate your district is. They do have options in saying, no, we're going to go forward with this. And, based on the social welfare of these 2 children, it's going to, put them at risk. That's your word, right? An at-risk category immediately. So yeah, you have a little bit of work ahead of you, because whoever has educational rights has the final say. In general. Okay, sorry. Okay, Holly. Tammy. Then we'll see this later. That you have an appointment.
Yes, I'm here.
Yay! Thank you. Tammy, do you have any other questions, or do you have any questions for me while you got my? Obviously, I flew through this really quickly.
I'm just really listening in. I don't work in this field at all, but it's just interesting to hear all the information.
Okay, what field do you work in?
And in child welfare.
Oh, okay. Well, then you deal with most of our babies, a lot of our
Yeah.
babies. Yeah,
Well,
yeah. No, yes, they should.
um, uh, up to the age of 18.
Okay, okay. You know, you do know that you also have, if you're working with families and they don't have an IEP yet, or they do have an IEP, you can still advocate for them through the California Educational Code, right?
Right. And we have programs in our community that are specific to education. So
Okay.
we do have resources that we use currently. So, but just listening in is good information for us to
All right.
know
Wonderful.
what's going on. Thank you.
Yeah. Hey, no, you know what? I wasn't expecting to blow through this so quickly. It's just that this is my first, whoops, hello, that I'm causing an earthquake. Um, I'm doing this like this, but it's really different, right? Because okay, here's the reality. When you're doing this live, right, you may have good 10 minutes before you lose them. All of a sudden, nope. So when you're thinking about behavior, with your kids, think about why are they, I get this a lot. You may get this also. Why are they blacking themselves out? Why are they closing the camera? Are they really participating? Now, this is in the generation of COVID, right? So if yes, he's blacking his screen and putting himself on mute because he's having a meltdown at home, whatever that may look like, then the teacher and the team needs to be notified of that, because in the era of COVID, unfortunately, if they had social pragmatic problems now or before, they're definitely going to have it now when they return. So I would, moving forward, I believe that most of the schools may be looking at reopening partially by, the upcoming September, maybe. But I would advocate to really have all of your kids reevaluated, number one, and number two, relooked at, not relooked at, but kind of have an eye out on behavior. That makes sense? Thumbs up.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Tabby. All right, guys. So if you guys don't have any other questions, we're basically done. Well, not tomorrow. Sorry, next week we're going to be talking about BCBA and AB, behaviors. How important it is for you to be at a baseline yourself before you try to tackle on somebody else's behavior. Which, well, if you're a mom, a social worker, an advocate, that's I practice every single day. So again, hey, thank you guys for joining us today, and we'll see you very soon. Oh, you're welcome, Elizabeth. See you guys.